Outlaw Sports is brought to you by Molson Canadian, made from Canada, and Rocky Mountain Barbecue, Alberta barbecue cuisine at its best. Once again, Eric, the big question is centering around the NHL, and it's grabbing all the headlines, is the fighting issue. And with these young men that were enforcers, and I think it's more of a coincidence than anything. Sure, the depression thing can happen to anybody at any stage in your life. I think people are drawing too much of a parallel to it. I for one tried to look at the stats and say, okay, well, I can see the point. But overall, you just can't say, well, because they were fighters, they're dead. Yeah. And you can't outlaw fighting just because of this thing. I think you have to have a hard look at it, and maybe it's the players that have to have the final say on it.
Sure. I mean, the one thing in this whole string of deaths, which is just horrible, and all three are, pretty different scenarios.
Sure.
And the Wade Belak thing, I mean, everyone's going with it being a suicide, but there's a lot of talk inside hockey that it was an accidental death, and I'm going to leave it at that because we'll just leave it at that for family reasons. But they're all different. I think it's not a bad thing that we're all talking about suicide. I mean, it sounds awful to say that sentence, but suicide, accidental death, we're talking about something that nobody ever talks about. So maybe some good comes out of that. I had a very interesting talk with Russ Courtnall last week, whose father killed himself when he was 13. That same day, the day after Wade Belak died, he got a phone call from a former teammate's wife saying, I think that my husband's going to kill himself. What can I do to help? And Russ got him the information, and hopefully that may have saved that man's life. So there's a good in all this. But at the end of the day, we all have pressures in our life. We all have things that make us sad. We all have sometimes when we're a little bit depressed. This is not just because they were fighters. But I'm glad the league is trying to see if there is a connection with all three, and they're going to look into it.
We've seen these headlines before, Eric, but they're hitting hockey. We've seen them with former NFL players and former Major League Baseball players. This one hits home because this is Canada's game. This is the one we love. And you see Canadian guys doing that. Well, hey, it happens down the States. They're bigger and all this kind of stuff. But this one really did hit home.
Oh, it's a terrible summer, right? If you're a hockey fan, the first one was shocking enough with Bugard, then Rippin. And the Belak one I think, hit the hardest for me. Just because I knew him. I mean, we covered him here in Calgary, and he was such a happy-go-lucky guy. You think the last guy in the world who would be depressed is this guy, but hey, I got to tell you, I have a family member whose life has been altered seriously because of depression, and I got to tell you, it's hard to understand. Even if you're very close to someone, you still cannot understand it. And I know that Russ Courtnall again was saying that his father for years. He felt near the end of his life he was trying to reach out and talk to somebody about it, and everyone just kept saying, come on, grow up. We all have problems. Shake it off.
Take it like a man.
Yeah, be a man. Wake up. Put a smile on your face. It's not that easy, but a lot of people think want it to be that easy.
Well, I think, when people look at the role that these enforcers play and the macho image and the tough guy image that they have, the last thing some of these guys want to show is a vulnerable side. And that's the human side of it. And it's all about the human character. And it's all about, every human being needs help. They need to reach out and touch somebody or be touched because they have to get in touch with themselves, right? Because of this.
If one thing the league can do, I think it would be this. And again, I'm going to go back to Russ Courtnall for the third time and final time.
Which was a great article, by the way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, he was great. He's great for the movement. I think leftbehindbysuicide.org is the organization that he's a board member on. And if anybody is struggling with this or knows a family member that is, maybe that's where you start. But that's the thing. In the NHL, I don't think if I said to you, where do you go if you're feeling depressed and you have suicidal thoughts? I don't think a player would be able to answer you with what. Well, I have these 1-800 numbers, but that's on alcohol. That's on drugs, that's on steroids. The league maybe, if anything, and I'm not criticizing the league because there's no blood on their hands if you ask me in any of this, is just find a way to make sure these players know that at all times there's one number that they can call and they can get any answer they want. Or maybe it's not that simple. Maybe they say, always go to your team doctor and everything's held in strict confidence. I don't know, but a lot of people don't know where to turn. Russ Courtnall didn't know where to direct that person that day that they called. He made a couple phone calls, found out. But if Russ Courtnall doesn't know and his life has been dominated by suicide, then how could a player be expected to know?
Tired of going to redneck barbecues? Well, you better call Rocky Mountain Barbecue. Alberta barbecue cuisine at its best. Great tasting food, clean and efficient service. Check us out online or call Rocky Mountain Barbecue.